Now I'm gonna try and be realistic with you guys as much as I possibly can.
No way that's how the book ends.
Nia knew that her story would be shoved to the sidelines. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to today's video, where today it's gonna be kind of like a mood reading type of vlog situation, but specifically we're going to see how much I read in a week. Now I'm gonna try and be realistic with you guys as much as I possibly can. In the last couple of months, I have not been reading at the, the speed that I usually can, and Bill can sometimes devour books. Like, there have been some things where I just have not been devouring books as much as possible. But so far in the month of June, I have read so far 4 books now. I'll put them up on the screen right now. And the most books that I have read in a month was in February, which I believe was 7 books, I believe. Let me actually check on Fable to see how many books I read each month, just so I can double check. Oh no, in February I actually read 9 books, because the other months I've mostly been consistent with either the 3 or the 2, because some of the books I've just not been devouring as much as I would like to. And I'm not gonna try and push myself too much this week. Basically what we're doing this week, like I said, I'm going to be tracking pretty much how much I read in a week. It's gonna be kind of on the realistic side, but also at the same time, I am just in the mood to read. And sometimes it will ebb and flow different days. Some days it will not. We're starting this on a Sunday. It's almost going to be 1 o'clock as I am recording this. I got a nice Dr. Pepper and strawberries and cream. So we got this as well. And I've got my TBR in the background as well too. There is 1 book missing from it, because a couple weeks ago I put in an order to check out Recursion on Libby by Blake Crouch, specifically the audiobook version. Because something I've noticed about myself is I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I try and utilize that as much as possible. And with recently getting a library card and now using Libby, I am able to do that. So the first book that we are going to be reading in this vlog is Recursion by Blake Crouch. If you guys don't know what this is about, basically I'm just going to read the back of this, and it says, "At first it looks like a disease, an epidemic that spreads through no known means, driving its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. But the force that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shockwave, unleashed by a stunning discovery. And what's in jeopardy is not our minds, but the very fabric of time itself. In New York City, Detective Barry Sutton is closing in on the truth. And in a remote laboratory, neuroscientist Helena Smith is unaware that she alone holds the key to this mystery and the tools for fighting back. Together, Barry and Helena will have to confront their enemy before they and the world are trapped in a loop of ever-growing chaos." So that's what this one is about. This would be my first kind of like science fiction-y book. I've been wanting to get into science fiction for a hot minute, and while I've heard so many great things about dark matter, I feel like something like this, and starting with Recursion, would be a little bit of a better type of, like, I don't know, start to the series, you know, or specifically start to this, you know. My plan is to try and read this later today when I'm on my lunch break, you know, and more than likely, since it is 1 o'clock, Mom and I are gonna start making some lunch. We're going to be doing something really, really good. And also, if you guys wanna ever like meet my mom like on camera, she's been mentioned a couple of times on the channel, but let me know if you guys wanna meet her. Her name is Mama Robin, obviously, that's how she wants to go on this channel. But anyways, I'm getting off track. But with Recursion, it is going to be, like I said, my first science fiction book. I've heard lots of good things about Blake Crouch. This is the only book of his that I have on my shelf, but I've heard so many people, specifically Jamie Folk, really liking his books. And I remember that she really liked Recursion, except for one little thing that I cannot remember exactly what it is that she didn't like about it, but I'm hoping to get a little bit more into the audiobook and such. And by get a little bit into the audiobook, I mean start the damn thing, because I have not even started it. I'm only like what also kills me is like this, which is, it starts by saying book 1, "Time is but memory in the making" by Vladimir Nabokov. I think is how you pronounce his name. His name looks Russian, but I could be very, very wrong. So I have no idea, to be honest with you. But is there anything else that I want to say with this book? Not really specifically related to this book, but my plan this week is to try and read as much of my TBR as I possibly can. So this is the first one that we are doing on the docket. And after this one, I'm kind of planning to read a romance. I'm either thinking of doing Into the Blue or King of Gluttony, mostly because Into the Blue is my book club pick for June. So I want to read that as soon as possible and like do that for book club pretty much, you know, even though we're not too far into the month. We are only on the 14th, which is like exactly the middle of the month pretty much, you know. But yeah, I will come back to you guys when I have a little bit more thoughts. This one's kind of gonna be one of those ones where I'm just gonna give you guys updates at the end of every single day and not really kind of like push myself to finish it too much. I'll read as much as I possibly can and how much I want to, and probably give you guys a little bit updates, like say like maybe I get 20% in, I'll like be 20% in, and then maybe the next day I will maybe get like 70% in. I kind of want to try a new type of style of doing updates, specifically trying to do tiny little updates and then do like a big type of final thought, you know, and also just trying to keep my stuff in straight, you know. But again, I have been talking for way too long. I am going to start Recursion a little bit later today, and I'm really, really excited for this. Again, first sci-fi novel, which I'm not really scared to read, but I'm also kind of excited that I'm starting with this one instead of Project Hail Mary, because I've heard that one's very sci-fi. And while I love science in general, I feel like that something like this would probably be a little bit more of a entryway of being like, hey, welcome to the genre. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking. You guys are more than likely going to see me reading a little bit of this, and then at the end of the day, I will give you some thoughts and where I'm at in the book. Hey friends, it is currently day 2 of the vlog. You guys saw me reading a little bit more of Recursion, and I kind of wanted to update you guys on how far I got into Recursion yesterday. So yesterday I obviously started on page 1 and I ended on page 41, which in total means I read 40 pages yesterday. And I started reading a little bit earlier today, as you guys saw, and I have made it to, we're gonna look it up and see where we're at within the book. I've made it to book 2 officially. So I'm on page 99 right now. My plan is to not completely abandon reading this for the night. I'm probably gonna read a little bit more of this off camera, but as you guys probably saw in the last clip as well, I was going through it. I was so stressed out. I was like, what is happening? And I can't really tell you too much about it because it would be like a spoiler about Recursion just in general and would give away a lot of the main plot that I think that this is going to follow. But it basically kind of like answers the question of like what exactly is going to happen when we try and figure out how to map past memories of people. And I think I told you guys this, but I'm 31% of the way through it. And oh my goodness, the writing style is very much hooking me. I am actually kind of liking it so far. I'm not even 50% in, but I am genuinely liking this story. I'm liking where this is going. I'm stressed as hell to figure out where exactly this is going because of the whole like multiverse timeline shit. And I'm like, that's something that has always kind of scared me because I'm like, but wait, how can this exist in this timeline and it can't exist in the other? And like vice versa. And I'm like, oh God. But anyways, this book is more than likely going to break my brain, but probably in a good way, which is something that I more than likely need, especially nowadays. Like I said, I've been kind of reading a little bit more of the romance and the thriller mystery genre where I don't need to think as much as I would need to in a book like this, you know? And even then I can kind of turn my brain off a little bit, but the minute I do turn off my brain, I miss something very important. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? What just happened? Anyways, like I said, this is not an official, like, end of the day type of thing. I record basically where I left off right at the end of the day. And by end of the day, I mean when I am going to sleep. Like I said, I'm tracking it on my phone, as you can see right here. And yeah, this is just kind of like a little mini update of like what I'm feeling. I will talk to you guys a little bit more when I get halfway through Recursion. So yeah, I'll see you at my halfway check-in. Hey friends, it is currently Wednesday. I forgot to update you guys yesterday on how much I read on Monday. And since we're here, I might as well tell you how much I read on Tuesday. So I'm still reading Recursion. I have made it about 51%. What's my book say? Hold on. Yeah. Oh no, I'm actually 52% of the way through. And it's breaking my brain so much, but it's breaking my brain in a way that's kind of hard to explain without spoiling the book. Let me get into how many pages I read on Monday. So on Monday, I started on page 41 and ended on page 99, which in total means that I read 58 pages. And then yesterday, I started on page 99 and ended on page 169, which means I read 70 pages. My goal today is to try and finish Recursion while I'm at work. As you guys can see that I'm dressed for that, but I'm not really too sure if I can finish it. I'm gonna try, but I also want to finish it with you guys on camera because it is one of those things where I've heard that the ending is crazy and I can't even predict to see where this is gonna go from here because like I'm just kind of enjoying my time with it. You know, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, you know, this is fine. But anyways, getting into my halfway check-in, I'm 52% of the way through. We just got to book 3 of Recursion, and it is crazy. It is something that I would look at like a dystopian film and just be like, no, 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 why are we doing this? It's kind of like a warning sign that I'm just like, just why? Just why? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm just like, oh God. It sucks because I'm just like, well, what the fuck? You know, like what the fuck is actually happening? We've already gone through something that I'm like, is brain breaking, that I'm just like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, what is happening? That is literally me the entire book. I'm like, what is happening? This is gonna break space-time. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm curious to see how they're going to solve the epidemic of false memory syndrome because I'm just like, what is happening? Like, what is happening? You know, apologies if you can hear thunder in the background and such. It's currently like very, very stormy and such. I see my Pookie Pie over there. She's laying down because she likes to come down here into the basement where I work a lot of the time. And she just feels kind of safe down here. So apologies if you can hear that, but anyways, Recursion is breaking my brain, but in a very, very good way. And it's also raising my anxiety along with my blood pressure, which is just one of those things where I'm like, oh man, it's crazy. I will say that. That's all I will say is that this is a crazy book. This is a crazy, crazy type of thing to think of. And I think I like the writing style, honestly. Like, honestly, this is giving 5 stars, which I have not felt in a long time. I have not felt a feeling for a 5-star in a really long time. I just have not been craving it. I've not been feeling it, but this one literally feels like a 5-star. Just as long as nothing kind of like derails me, I should be fine in giving it a 5-star. But those are kind of like my halfway thoughts in right now. I'm going to go to work today, and then hopefully later tonight I will be able to take you guys along with me while I finish a little bit of Recursion. I'm going to try and listen to the majority of it at work, but if I don't, then you guys will see me with my final thoughts after this. So yeah, I will see you guys either when I'm finishing up or when I'm giving you my final thoughts on the books. But so far, really high hopes.
Are you kidding me? No way that's how the book ends. No way that's how this book fucking ends. I'm angry, but also I feel like I just did somersaults on my brain. I will come back to you guys in the morning with final thoughts. Why the fuck did it have to end like that? What the fuck? Are you kidding me? That's how the book ends. That's crazy. That is fucking crazy. What the fuck?
So as you guys saw yesterday, oh, oopsies, I had the microphone again. I finished reading Recursion by Blake Crouch, and I was definitely torn on this book because this is one of the first times in a long time where I've actually kind of been like, is it a 5-star? Do I truly give it a 5-star? Because it's one of those books that kind of broke my brain. And I will say, even though the concept was great and it was wonderful, it was not completely perfect. So for that, I do have 5-star feelings, but it is definitely not the perfect thing in the world. So I'm going to be really annoying with my rating and give it a 4.75. I know it's like, why not round it up, Sam? Well, let me tell you the reason why. For the first, 70% of the book, I was loving it. It was giving me 5-star feelings. It gave me so much anxiety and it gave me so much high blood pressure that I was just like, oh God. And it's also kind of one of those things where this one human, Helena, she was trying to create something that could be good for people with Alzheimer's, and then someone came in and saw what its capabilities were and decided to use it for their own gain. Specifically with almost ripping apart the fabric of the universe, And that was great. I really liked the way the book was structured. And even though this is a sci-fi novel, I will say at first it was a little bit hard to get, but then once my kind of like brain science and my psychology degree kind of kicked in, it kind of became a lot easier because, like I said, I have a BA in psychology, and if I were to go into research, if I were to go into grad school for psychology, my like sub like genre of things or whatever, I would more than likely study memory. So this actually made a lot of sense to me, but I can understand if some people are a little bit like, I don't know what's really going on, because it's a hard thing to kind of conceptualize. That was great. Up until 75 or 70%, then we got a random romance out of nowhere, and it kind of took me a little bit out of the story, but then as we were getting into the last half of the book, I get why Blake Crouch had the feeling to bring these two characters together, because it makes sense for what they were trying to do and what they were trying to like stop essentially. But also at the same time, I was just like, why does this need to be included in the first place? It could have been fine if they were, I don't know, colleagues or something like that, but it just threw me off to where it was like, okay, it was perfect until it got there. And like I said, I can't really tell too much about it because it would be spoilers, but I will say this is actually a fairly good sci-fi book to get into if you're wanting to get into the genre. This is my first sci-fi book that I read in my adult years as well. It also reads very much like dystopia, but not as much as like Hunger Games dystopian, or from what I imagine, Shatter Me, even though I haven't read that yet. I want to. I'm guessing that's what it's meant to be, you know? And it is not completely like sci-fi heavy too much. In the beginning, there's a lot of info dump, but it's not like too much to where it's going to break your brain too much. And it could be confusing because if you look at the like book and such, it's kind of like in like a figure eight, aka an infinity loop, you know, and that can be kind of confusing for people. But like I said, I really did enjoy it except for the romance. So it is going to be a 4.75 for me personally. So that is the first book of the video done. And since we are here, I might as well tell you how many pages I read yesterday on Wednesday. So yesterday I obviously finished the book, and for Recursion, I started on page 169 and ended on page 326, which is the end of the book. That in total was 157 pages. And then yesterday I actually started a new book when I was in bed because I was kind of thinking, I was like, I'm in the mood to read something, but I have two books that I want to read. So I was kind of debating between which one I would do for that. The book that I started yesterday was one that I've been seeing so many, and I mean so many people talking about. It's not even funny, but I started Into the Blue by Emma Brody, and I started on page 1 and ended on page 25. So for that one, it was 24 pages. So in total, I read 181 pages. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that one on Wednesday. So I'm not even too far into the Blue, so I can't really tell you too much about this story. I think I might need to reread a little bit of a couple things and such, because when I was going to bed, I was a little bit on the tired side and I don't really remember too much of what I read. But from what I remember and what the back of the book said, it follows these two people, specifically this woman named AJ Grams, and she's like in high school. She is working at a video rental store, and she kind of has all of these aspirations to leave her hometown, go play soccer. I believe it was at Brown University, I think is what she said, but I can't remember off the top of my head what she said on that end, you know? And then that doesn't really like happen too much because of an accident, she broke her arm, and she kind of has this thing of like, well, my life is not going the way that I expected it to. I'm not going to be able to get out of this small town. I'm going to be stuck here forever. And then in comes Noah Drew. He is, I think he's 3 or 4 years older than her, but I cannot remember off the top of my head. She's working at the video store one day, and then Noah Drew comes in and he's wanting a job, and he is basically a Nepo baby. He has a very famous family of actors and actresses, and he has a family member on this show that she likes to watch called, I think it's called Astronauticals or Nauticals or something along that line. storylines, and it kind of follows their love story through there. Then after a little bit in like the year 2000, something happens between the two of them and they don't speak for like 7 years. Then they're thrown back together again, and you're just kind of following from there and kind of like following their love story and how much it might even transcend time as well. So that is Into the Blue by Emma Brody. I might read a little bit of that today if I can get to it. I'm not too sure. But another book that I want to read that I actually got as an audiobook via Libby. I put in like my thing like a couple weeks ago, so I was not expecting to get this and such, but then I got a thing being like, oh hey, your hold is ready to be like taken if you want to do it. And that is The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. I first saw Kalila Denson read this and I was like, oh, I need to like try this. But basically it follows this dude. His name is Patrick, or Gay Uncle Patrick, Gup for short. He's always loved his niece and nephew, Maisie and Grant. That is, he loves spending time with them when they come out to Palm Springs for long weekend visits, or when he heads home to Connecticut for the holidays. And then when tragedy strikes, Patrick finds himself suddenly taking on the role of primary guardian. I'm pretty sure Maisie and Grant's parents die, so he kind of takes over being like the parental figure in their life. And he's basically just like trying to figure out how to become a parent, and you're just kind of like following from there. I'm more than likely going to start it today because I have work all day pretty much, so I'm planning on listening to the majority of this, and I will come back with more than likely a couple of thoughts. I'm not really trying my best to try and finish these guys within the week. If I can finish them, sure, that's a good thing, but like it's not like a thing where I'm like, oh, I need to get this done. Like if I get them done, that'll be just like an added bonus type of vibe. You know what I mean? I hope you guys know what I mean. But that's it for the check-in on Thursday, which is day 5. Wow, I had to do some math there for a second. But yeah, first book that we finished was Recursion. I am going to go to work and start listening to a little bit of The Guncle. You guys might see me reading a little bit more of Into the Blue. It just kind of depends on what we're at with today. And yeah, I will check in with you guys more than likely tomorrow. But you guys should see me reading a little bit of my book later today. Okay, friends, it is currently day 6, aka Friday, of the how much I realistically read in a week. I am pulling up the stats right now because I cannot remember if I told you how many pages I read yesterday, which is Thursday. And I'm not gonna lie, I meant to take you guys on a little bit of like a reading sprint with me earlier in this video, but then things got in the way. Life got in the way. I didn't really feel like picking up the camera and recording a little bit. But basically, yesterday, I started listening to a little bit of The Guncle. I only made it about like 19 pages into that because I wasn't really feeling it very well. I didn't really like the narrator, which I later found out was the author, but I wasn't really gelling with the narrator recently. So I was like, I'm just gonna like softy enough it, come back to it later and just like try it again at a later date, And then I read a little bit more of Into the Blue. I started on page 25 and made it to page 46, which is not that long. And in total, I only read about 40 pages or so between the two books. And I'm going to give you a little bit of my updates on Into the Blue. I don't know where my copy is, my physical book, so it's just gonna be up on the screen somewhere, but I'm not too sure if I'm feeling Into the Blue, to be honest with you. I tried listening to a little bit of the audiobook, and I love Julia Wendland. She's one of my favorite narrators, but I was listening to a little bit of Into the Blue, and I wasn't really vibing with it. So I think, even though I just started that one as well too, I think I'm going to put it back for now. I do plan on getting to it again. I just don't think right now is the best time, which is kind of unfortunate. But I did start an audiobook earlier today that has kind of been on my mind for a little bit, because when I was younger, I knew about Dance Moms, but I never watched the show as I was growing up, but I tried to watch it a couple years ago and I couldn't get through it. It was way too much. I hated what Abby put the girls through, honestly, especially what she put Nia through. And I've had the audiobook for a while, but I wasn't too sure if I was going to get the physical copy of this memoir. So I went on to Libby and I borrowed it, and then I ended up getting it, or like not borrow it. I put it on a loan or a hold specifically, and then I got it loaned out to me. So I started listening to Bottom of the Pyramid, A Memoir of Persevering, Dancing for Myself, and Starring in My Own Life by Nia Sue. And I started on page 1 today, and it's not that long of a book. I've made it to chapter 11, which is page 137, and I'm like 63% of the way through. I'm not too sure if I'm going to be able to finish it today. As you can see by the clock, like right there and such, it's like 9:23, almost 9:30. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to finish it before I go to sleep. I'm definitely on the tired side, but I think I could continue listening and reading my book if I wanted to. And you guys know I don't really rate nonfiction books because it feels weird rating somebody's story and somebody's life to me. There's something about it where it's weird to put kind of like a rating onto somebody's story, being like, oh my God, this story, 5 stars, like 5 stars or whatever, even though that's what I was already kind of doing before I kind of got into that mindset. But if I'm like listening to this and such, like I said, I didn't really watch Dance Moms growing up because one, I didn't have access to Lifetime when I was a kid, and I'm really kind of glad that I did not watch this when I was a kid. I know it was very, very popular when I was going through dance, and so many of my like friends slash like acquaintances and dance members and such watched it at the time when we were growing up, and it got a lot of people into dance in the first place. But this one, Nia, she's obviously taking back her story. And if you guys know anything about Nia, she was pretty much the only Black girl on the Abby Lee Dance like company like competition team. She was the only Black girl. A couple girls came and went and things like that. But her story got really, really muddled because she was portrayed as a dancer who was very weak and was not very hardworking, when in reality, she probably did the hardest amount of work than anybody on that show. And people who love Dance Moms can come at me in the comments. I don't fucking care. I still think that show is horrible and horrendous, and Abby Lee, she should have stayed in prison a lot longer, in my fucking opinion. She should have just been she's not a good person. She's not a very good person. And I love reading Nia's story because I can relate so much. Specifically, I grew up as a dancer. I grew up dancing for about 14 years, I would say. Yeah, I started when I was about 5. I ended when I was 18. No, actually it was around 13 to 14 years. I was dancing, like not professionally, but like recreationally throughout my life. And being in a small town, mostly consistent of white girls, and being a mixed, mostly presenting Black woman, it was very hard for me to get myself out there and to feel like that I actually belonged in the space, which is what Nia felt when she was doing dance with Abby Lee Dance Company or whatever it was called. And I don't know why I resonate with her story so much, because she's talking about like one of the things I remember, if you guys remember when they did a Dance Moms reunion with some of the girls and they asked the girls to come on, and it was Maddie, Mackenzie, and Nia that didn't want to do it. And I remember seeing clips from when that show came out, like the reunion show or whatever, and they were slamming on all 3 of them, being like, well, you should have come here. But Nia knew that her story would be shoved to the sidelines like it always was. And I love the fact that she's taking back her power and she's taking back her voice and she's taking back her story and starring in her own life, because there's something about when you have been beaten down for so long and you almost don't really recognize yourself, when you pull yourself out of that rut and you pull yourself out of that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness and finally start living your life again, it feels great. It feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels like something that is meant to happen and that is meant to be just a thing in general. And I feel that with Nia's story. You can hear it in her writing, in the way that she's talking about it, inflicting with it within the audiobook itself. And I tell you what, she is a lot stronger than I would have been, honestly. If I somehow ended up in the clutches of Abby Lee Miller, I would have more than likely quit after my first day of doing dance, because she is a horrible, horrible, horrible woman. But I love the fact that Nia is taking back her narrative and she's taking back her story and she's telling her story in the most authentic way that she possibly can, which is through this memoir. And like I said, I've been wanting to read a lot more like nonfiction for a hot minute. It's just sometimes hard for me to kind of get in the mood to listen to it, because you guys know I mostly do audiobooks, but when it comes to nonfiction, I always audiobook it, because anytime I've tried to read a memoir or a nonfiction, like just like with my eyes, I always end up falling asleep and not retaining the information. I don't know why. It's not like that it's not interesting. It's just something that I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of bored with this, even though I'm not trying to be bored, if that makes any sense, you know? I feel like I'm talking in circles, honestly. But yeah, I've made it, like I said, I've made it 63% of the way. Like I said, I'm not going to rate it, but I am loving to hear her story and understand who she is and was as a kid, and also looking at this at a mature age. I'm pretty sure she's like either 24, 25. I think she's like 2 or 3 years older than me. I'm 22, so that would make a little bit more sense if she was around like my age, because a lot of them are around my age with the Dance Moms like cast members, you know. I'm gonna try and finish it tonight, but if we don't, I might finish it tomorrow in the morning, because I will probably be able to get some reading done tomorrow, but not really. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try and get through Bottom of the Pyramid, but if I don't get through it tonight, I will more than likely finish it tomorrow when I am kind of like just like chilling in the morning or whatever. I'll take you guys along with me for that. Okay, friends, we're on to Saturday, aka the last day of this reading vlog. I'm coming in to tell you guys how many pages I read yesterday, aka on Friday. Yesterday, you guys know I started listening / reading Bottom of the Pyramid, which is Nia Souza's memoir, and then I also kind of started a little bit of Into the Blue by Emma Brody. But like I said, I'm not sure if I'm feeling Into the Blue right now, so I think I'm gonna put it down for now and then go at it about like a little bit of a later time, pretty much, you know. I'm just not sure if I'm feeling that type of romance or not, and just feeling that aspect of things. But like I said, I started on page 1 of Bottom of the Pyramid and ended on page 137, aka I read about 136 pages yesterday. And I started listening to a little bit more this morning as I was like getting together and things like that. And unfortunately, I won't be able to show you guys me finishing it right now, because I obviously need to just like get ready to go to Pride, because it's currently like 11:05 right now and the parade kind of starts at noon. So maybe later today I will show you guys, or like show a little bit of me finishing it, and then I will, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm gonna read anything else today. I'm not gonna lie. I've kind of been in a little bit of a reading mood, but not quite in the like reading mood, if that makes any sense, you know? But yeah, so far I think I've actually read a pretty good amount of pages this week, but I won't know until I add it up, you know? Like I said, this is kind of on the realistic side, because my ebb and flows of reading books kind of like changes every single week. Some days I get like done with so many books in a week. Sometimes I don't get done with as many books as I wish I could, you know? But yeah, I'm almost done with Nia's book. I have 3 chapters left until I'm at the end. I think it said I'm 83% of the way through this. Yeah, I'm 83% of the way through this. And my heart is breaking for the girl that Nia used to be on this damn show. But I'm so happy that she is being able to take back her own story and and being able to take back what she deserves and what she's able to like do within this book and within like her life in general. Like I still follow her on social media sometimes. She's not as active, but it's always kind of nice to see like her like pop up being like, oh, what's she doing now, you know? Yeah, I will see you guys a little bit later when I'm finishing up Bottom of the Pyramid, and then on Sunday I will give you guys a total wrap up of how many how many pages I read throughout the week, and also how many pages I ended up reading on Saturday, aka today. Hey guys, so we are now in the outro-ish of the video and such, but I'm basically coming in to tell you guys how many pages I've read on Saturday and also my final thoughts on Bottom of the Pyramid by Nia Sue with her memoir. And to first start off with, I started on page 137 and ended on page 232, which is the end of the book. So in total, I read 95 pages that day. And of course, I finished listening/reading to Nia's memoir. And like I said, I don't usually rate nonfiction, mostly because of the fact that it feels kind of weird to rate somebody's life and rate their experiences and kind of rate just nonfiction in general. For me, I get why the ratings exist in the first place, but for some reason when it comes to me, it feels kind of weird to put like 5-star here, 4-star there, rada rada, yada yada. It's like I'm rating somebody else's experiences when it is completely different compared to like what kind of like memoir I want to read, you know? And the reason why I also kind of picked up this memoir is because one, I was kind of just like feeling it, and it just kind of came to me via Libby, you know, when I put it like in like, when I put a hold on it like a couple weeks ago, and it came to me, so I got it on Kindle, and I might get the physical copy, but usually I don't really like to get the physical copies of memoirs. I don't know why. It's just something that it's not a priority for me. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any goddamn sense whatsoever. But like I said, with Bottom of the Pyramid, I really enjoyed reading her story and kind of understanding a little bit more about what it was like for her on Dance Moms and what it was like to be her pretty much in the Dance Moms world, you know, because many people know Nia for her being the only Black girl on the team and also quote unquote being the weakest dancer because she was mostly on Bottom of the Pyramid all the goddamn time whenever it came to it. And like I said, I never really watched the show growing up. It kind of became like a resurgence during like 2019, 2020 when people were at home rewatching their favorite shows. And I remember a lot of my dance casts being like, oh my God, I love this show. This is great. This is wonderful. You know, this is absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, I guess it's kind of good, but like I hated it personally because of how shitty, not only that they treated, that Abby treated the girls, but also how some of the moms treated their children. And the only people that I actually really liked on the show was Nia and her mom, Holly. Those were the only two people that I liked. I don't really have too much of a parasocial relationship with Nia. I follow her sometimes, but it's not like I'm actively seeking out her story. But when she was saying that she was starting a story, I'm like, was kind of curious. Like I got my gears turning being like, you know, this could be an interesting thing to kind of just like learn about and just kind of like see pretty much, you know? So I really enjoyed it. I think if you are a fan of Dance Moms and want to truly get the whole story, because I wouldn't be too surprised if any of the other girls brought up memoirs of their time on Dance Moms and pretty much like talked about what it was like for them, you know, especially with the OG cast members as well too, because it was one of those things where it was a really really, really hard show to watch. It's a hard show in general, but you know, it's one of those things where we just kind of need that like breaking of the fourth wall, you know, to kind of like take the rose-colored lenses off of our eyes and see what these girls truly were. They were pretty much abused during their formative years and their adolescent years, and so many of them have started healing and are continuing to heal from this journey as well too. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Bottom of the Pyramid. And in total of the pages I read this week, I read a total of 620 pages, with only finishing 2 books and starting 4, but only finishing 2 of those pretty much, you know? Yeah, that is basically it, really, for this video. So yeah, we had a fun time reading this, a book that broke my brain and a book that kind of brought me back to reality, which is really nice. It sucks that I wasn't really feeling it with the Guncle or Into the Blue recently, because like, one, Into the Blue has been very, very popular as of recently, and I'm curious to see why so many people like it in the first place, but you never know. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I guess we might like it, we might not. I'm not too sure, honestly, off the top of my head. Am I missing anything? I don't think I am, but we shall see, to be honest with you. But anyways, that is going to be the end of the video. So first of all, thank you guys again so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and comment down below. If you don't know what to comment down below, tell me how many books you typically finish in a week, or if you're a little bit on the slower reader side, tell me how many books you roughly finish in a month. If you liked me, please make sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications. You guys know that every Monday I post either reading, writing, or lifestyle vlogs. I'm trying to move it to every other Wednesday because I can't quite keep up with like the demand of everything that's going on with like the Wednesday uploads as well, but that's mostly going to be bookish content, whether that is TBRs, tier rankings, 5-star list predictions, maybe even going through some of the series that I've been wanting to read for either a long time or needing to continue, or whether or not I'm going to DNF any of the series as well too that I've been reading. And of course on Fridays we do Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream. There has been so much fun, so much chaos, and just so much enjoyment with that. I'm really loving doing the Tomodachi Life stuff. It is so fun. It's a nice little kind of break to get away from some of like the like reading aspects of the channel and just kind of like having fun. You know what I mean? I hope you guys know what I mean. And if you want to follow me somewhere else on the internet, I've got my Fable, my TikTok, my Instagram, and my Goodreads down below, along with my bookshop.org. And if you want to check out any of the books that have been mentioned in this video, there are going to be links in the description down below where you can get them and order them online from bookshop.org. And you can choose an independent store of your choosing to basically buy the book from. If you're like, oh, I've seen that around, but I haven't really like bought it quite yet, you can purchase it from there, and then you can also support your local independent bookstore. It is so nice. It is such a great little thing to just kind of like keep the independent bookstore groove alive and just kind of like making them know that like they are loved and that they are supported as well too. But anyways, I'm talking in circles. Thanks again for watching, and I truly, 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 truly hope that you guys have an amazing day, week, month, and year. See you later, friends!